Wednesday, December 7th, 2022, 5 o'clock. There being a quorum, I call this December meeting to order. First item is public input.
Hi there.
Hello, would you like to comment, sir?
Yes, I would like to have some public input if that's possible.
Please do. Come up here.
Come up here.
Whatever you'd like.
Give your name,
Have a seat.
your
Tell us
address.
what you'd like.
Sure. My name is Brian Wood. I live at 194 Church Street in Barrington. And I've got some clarity I'm looking to get on a water line issue I have. So in the summer, I noticed near my water shutoff valve there was water coming out of the asphalt. So I called the water company, they came down and determined that I had a leak, probably a small leak on my side of the water line. So anything on this side of the water line, I'm responsible for it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. They told me if the leak or any issues were on this side of the line towards the water main, that would be Bristol County Water Authority's issue. Since it's on this side of the line, I had an excavator come out, they dug it up, they patched the leak. However, they discovered that I have a steel water line, which is very old, probably about 70 years old. My house is on a slab foundation. The water line goes under my house, around the corner, and my utility room is on the other side of the house. So they patched the leak where they found it near the water shutoff, but the plumber told me, basically long-term solution, you need a new water line. There's no way around it. I have my house plot map here. If you'd like to see it, I can pass it around. So, yeah, I'll just pass that around if you guys want to see that. My lot is very small, so it's impossible to replace my water line where it currently is. It goes under my house, under a slab foundation. There's no room for an excavator behind my house, and I'm on a corner lot. I'm on South Street and Church Street. I can't run it around the other way because I'd be digging up the road and a telephone pole. So the only solution I have is to tap the water main on Church Street in front of my house and connect to my utility room there.
Okay.
So that's the plan. Came down, set that up, did the application, paid the $4,000 check. And then I was told before anything could start, I'd have to pay a line abandonment fee, which is estimated at $2,500.
But you're not abandoning a line, you're just relocating it.
Correct. I'm paying for a brand new line as well. So that was made as a condition to even start the project. So I got to pay $4,000 plus the line abandonment fee estimate before anything would get done. So to expedite this, given the need to get a new water line, I paid everything up front. But I'm here to ask for an exception because I don't want to abandon the line. I don't think I should have to abandon it, and I don't think it's my responsibility. I was told that what I said basically is just shut it off at the road at the shutoff valve. I've got the new line, which they did on Monday, by the way, which is great. But I don't see why. They said they don't have confidence that a leak would not happen on an 80-year-old service line from the water main to the shutoff. I said, well, that's on you guys. I shouldn't be paying $2,500 to dig up the road and cap it at the main. They said that's the only way that's...
So you're the only service on that?
I'm the only service on this. So I'm just asking for, if you don't have confidence in the shutoff valve, then fine, do it on the dime of Bristol County Water Authority. But for me, just shut the valve off. It's going to be disconnected. End of story. Is it, let's say someone foreclosed on a house and it sat vacant for 5 years. Is it, what do they do then? They probably turn it off. It's probably not common practice to dig up the road and cap it off with the water
I
main.
think you have kind of a unique circumstance.
It's so unusual that I'm asking for an exception. It's a giant financial burden, and it's just...
I never heard of a line abandonment fee.
Yeah.
Is that enough?
Yeah, yes, we would charge for like if the line, if it's vacant or even a demo, we would shut it off at the curb stop. And then we charge that cost, so we don't have that water service line,
That doesn't go
a
in.
live service line that just stops at the curb stop.
Yeah, that's the end of our service.
Yeah, but we would,
Why do we
we cut off the main, not at the curb stop.
Which I don't own or maintain.
So we charge, right, but it was done at your request.
Not mine, probably 80 years ago when I built the property. Someone paid for that line, like I paid for my new one.
Now, can I just interject here? My recollection of the process, is
Yes.
we don't decide this tonight.
Okay,
Okay? We have a committee
sure.
that will review your claim.
Yeah.
And so, can you leave the map that you gave us?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've
Leave the
talked with,
material with us.
I've probably done about 20 emails with Sue back and forth.
The conversation can continue
Sure.
this evening, but the committee needs to meet on this and discuss the claim, discuss with staff, and then make a recommendation at the next meeting.
I appreciate
That's
it.
when the decision would be made.
Okay. I appreciate the consideration.
Oh, no, there's
And
no
I was
problem with that.
asking, line abandonment's probably such an uncommon thing. It probably happens, I don't know, maybe a couple times. And it's probably for a developer wanting to level a
I mean,
building.
I really think you have a very unique circumstance all the way around.
Yeah, and I'm just looking for a little bit of understanding on this, and this
Because
is
the
out of
only
my...
other thing you could have done was to sign up for the insurance.
I don't think it would have even covered this, because if you're covering your water line, I need a new water line. They wouldn't even,
You'd probably have to litigate with them.
yeah.
At any rate, Mr. Wood, when we make a decision on this,
Yes.
I think you can appreciate, it will set a precedent,
Absolutely.
okay? Not that we have
Yep.
100 people, every year.
Exactly.
Abandoning and changing,
Yes.
but it sets a precedent. So we have to be very careful
Right.
about considering everything before we make a decision. That's why we have a committee to do
Alan,
it.
I'm kind of taking exception to it, because if I were sitting in your seat, I'd probably want to know where I stand, number one. But number two, I would argue that you are not abandoning it, you are relocating it.
Yeah.
It's
And
actually,
therefore, it doesn't necessarily set an exception.
Well, all I'm saying is,
No, I understand about
the
the
committee should
process.
come up with the comments and the reasons for recommending
Right.
whatever the board decides to do. And each point, pro and con, what have you, would be presented and then would go into the record.
okay.
It also
That's-
needs to be an agenda item.
Yeah, yes,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
It would
Thank you so
be
much.
an
Because
agenda
it needs to
item.
be in the legal
The
process.
information would be in the record, all the reasons for making the decision, and certainly your point's well taken.
Okay.
I'm just saying there's a process for this.
Yeah,
In my recollection, we haven't done one like this.
Right.
That I recall.
And your recollection goes back quite a way.
It does.
paying for this abandonment was a condition on me getting a new water line.
Right, so you paid and you.
So I paid in
love to get your
advance.
money.
I understand. I understand.
Unable to,
So I appreciate you being here.
Yes.
I'm saying to you, the committee may ask you other questions.
oh, absolutely.
Do you have an email address, sir?
Yes, I think Sue has all my
Question?
information, but if I
Okay,
can...
so you have all your information? Excellent. Excellent. So,
Steve, just a question from me. If somebody demolished the building and they're not putting anything back there, do they?
Yeah, that's what the abandonment is really designed
Yes.
for.
I just never heard of that.
Yeah. So I think the process is correct. What I would suggest, I think what staff has been doing though is just following with the rules and regulations that they have for Bristol County Waters.
but certainly you have the
The
right
board has
to
a right.
request.
Correct.
Board has a right to overrule.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, they do.
Thank you for hearing me out, I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem at all. And so they'll be in touch with you, and
Great.
then the activity that deals with this should happen in January at the next meeting that we have.
Oh, appreciate
Anytime you
that.
have a nice new bylaw.
Yes, that's a relief, because it's, yeah, that is a nice peace of mind to have. Oh, you guys can keep it if you want.
Yeah, let's
Why don't we keep that?
hang on to that.
Great, well, have a
Is that
nice
all?
holiday, everybody.
You too.
Any other questions? You
No.
good?
Thank you, sir. We'll be in touch with you.
Thank you. Thank
I'd
you for
like
your
a piece of
time.
cake anyway.
Oh, man, I appreciate it.
We're long on paper.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Next item are the minutes.
Move to approve?
10:27. Any questions or comments?
I would just note that
Yeah, I was late, I was late but not absent, so I understand that we adopted this process.
I'll correct that, now I'll correct that.
Okay. We don't have a time you showed up.
Yeah, I know. Down further in the minutes.
Oh, yeah, 5:02.
There it is, okay.
2 minutes.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. And the next item is the Finance Committee session of November 17th. A motion to approve.
Move to approve.
A second?
Second.
There we go. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? It is approved unanimously. Executive Director's Report.
Okay. Like a pipeline project, phase one, it's complete, with exception of a couple of minor punch list items, close out the contract. Phase two, design work continues with survey and boring along new revised alignment. They has prepared an amendment for that additional work, which is under review. It's also been forwarded to the City of East Providence for their review. They're still reviewing the 30% design plans. They were submitted back in August 24th. I put another call in today, and I will be seeing the water superintendent tomorrow. I'll hopefully get some more information and push them on getting that wrapped up. Because what follows is our request for reimbursement for the 30% design costs.
So you sent that out October 16th.
Excuse me?
You asked for the reimbursement. on
September 16th that was submitted.
September 16th.
Yeah, after we had forwarded the 30% design plans,
Right.
a few weeks later, I sent a request for reimbursement.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, they're being reviewed by their engineer, which they are not moving very quickly on, so, but, I've been pushing, and I know that water superintendent's been pushing to get, their review done. Demo of the water treatment plant, phase one, the bid documents are pretty much wrapped up, and just due to timing, it looks like we'll be bringing that out to bid just after the holidays. We gave another tour. We entertained many staff and board members from Preserve RI just the other day. So, and I guess they're going to put their collective heads together to see if they can come up with something to what they're going to want to potentially do with the building. So, probably they've been active in Warren because they were
Yeah, they were down on Water Street.
on Water Street too. I read in the
That's why they were
paper.
here.
So, yeah.
Any immediate reaction from them?
No, not really, other than we recognize the challenge it would be to repurpose the building, but,
They don't care about that.
what's that?
They don't care about that.
Well, they like to see it done, but I mean, who's gonna come forward with money to do it? They're gonna reach out to various people that they work with to see if there's some viability to it. So,
Wouldn't you just have to put in a floor, a first floor, so to speak?
Not just.
I don't know. I don't know.
Because it's a cavity.
It's always interesting to see people's first reactions when they walk in the building.
Do we have give these folks a date of when they either got a fish or cut bait so that it wouldn't hold anything back of what BCWA is going to do as far as demolishing and going?
Well, we're moving forward, with the phase one, right? So we'll have the space for them. We're gonna have some storage containers because we still use the plant for cold storage. So then with the containers, then we can systematically start taking everything out that we use in the plant. Okay, and then and then we'll definitely be out of there for good. And then really, I think it's just gonna be the board's decision when we want to go forward with it.
Well, I just don't want to be hung out.
I mean, I don't know,
If
you know,
somebody,
maybe-
if we say a date and then all of a sudden somebody comes in waving a flag, we want to make sure that they're aware this is the date that they either say they want to do something or just be out of the business with this.
I mean, I don't know, maybe even with how we plan it, doing phase one, it might, you know, get people's attention again, you know, if they're really serious about the plant building going forward.
Okay.
You're right, I mean, we can't just sit around and wait
Yeah.
to see if someone's gonna come up with, you know, a pile of money to repurpose the building.
Be the day after you hit it with the machine.
Okay,
No really new news on the dam removals. We're still waiting on permit approvals from DEM Wetlands and Water Resources, although, as you all know, the DOT has completed the work on the culverts and that roadway has been reopened. So that's a critical first project towards our dam removal project. We could not remove the upper dam without this project moving forward.
Any local reaction to that being opened? Or
I haven't heard anything. I don't know if
no
any,
news is good news?
I could open.
any Warren members.
No, I heard, I heard somebody say there's not enough room for fishing. I don't even know where I heard that.
Actually, we had a meeting with the fire chief, and he did mention that the roadway does seem a bit narrow, crossing the river. And I think the guardrail placements are right on the, there's really no shoulder anymore.
Right.
The guardrails are right on the edge of the pavement. So it gives it really appearance that's, you know, bottlenecks down. That's the only thing I've heard. Meter replacement program, I know things have slowed down a little bit during the holidays, but up until, I even had some updated numbers from Joe and his group, we have now under 70 of the old meters in the system. For 17,500 accounts.
So what's our plan about the 70?
We're gonna keep banging away at them, and then in the springtime,
Because there's an expense to us. and
right, yeah.
So I think that we should consider some sort of a fine or additional pricing to encourage people to get those replaced.
Yeah.
I understand that meters decline 0.5% a year on the average. So if we had a knowledge of when their meter was replaced originally, the board could enact a policy to raise the rate specifically for people in that category.
But
Yeah.
that's true, but in addition, we're having to read those manually as opposed to drive-by, right?
Right, or they're estimated.
Yeah,
Most of them are estimated.
so, I mean, that's an additional cost to us.
Yeah, I mean, so I think an exception could be made to deal with people like that
Right.
Yeah.
who aren't going to conform.
So perhaps what would make sense is for you to come back to us with a suggested policy, but I think it should be significant enough to encourage people to get the new meters.
We will do that. We'll continue the path we're doing. Like I said, we can't shut shut-offs now in the wintertime. Although that has worked significantly for people to react, so, you know, in the spring, we'll come up with a new measure. Water purchases for this time are slightly lower, but we're still up for the year. Attached the graphs. I've also attached a new graph that shows the water that we're getting from the East Providence connection. It's roughly like 20% of our total flow. So we're basically flowing enough water, just enough water to keep that water fresh in that new 24-inch pipeline. And we have just a note on my report that we met with the Finance Committee on the budget, which will be discussed tonight. That concludes my report.
Mike? Any questions? Okay, Mike, you're up.
Not too much else to add, but on the meter topic, we were able to get a new data collector up and running. That one was following the agreement that was secured with the town of Warren. So with all of these, we have a couple more sites, pretty low recovery at this point per site, but we're in and around 96%. The Neptune meters being recovered through the fixed network. So pretty happy with that. It does exceed some of the propagation studies that Neptune thought for our system. So that is a positive for that. Otherwise, rates are starting to come in. It's that time of year. Services, non-copper services, and some old cast iron leaks. The other thing the crews did is a lot of field verification of some of the pipelines that we hope to either replace or rehabilitate this coming construction season. And then the pump station. Unfortunately, where we are in the pump station is right up against those critical components. So it's really making the project come to a screeching halt, unfortunately. So as that stuff trickles in, delayed or otherwise, it'll affect how we can assemble it over the winter.
Do we incur additional costs in winterizing to protect what's there now?
No, we're gonna keep water out of it so we don't have to. So we're taking the steps to mitigate any extra costs as much as possible. We're procuring, storing materials, whatever we have to do to keep the project on budget. And then Steve touched on the Pecca pipeline. Everything's pretty much wrapped up on phase 1 and phase 2. The survey work was completed, and we're advancing the blending study. So we're at the point where we're actually starting the data collection part of the blending study, where we can start, the sub-consultant is looking at both supplies, and we'll start their analysis on how to bring those together and not impact our system, mostly with respect to corrosion of the lead and copper.
At what point in our process of design does Pawtucket have to come alive? Because they're supposed to make a connection to the property line, city line, to connect with our phase 2 pipe. When do we notify them that it's time to start designing and constructing their part of the deal? Or do we need to worry about that yet?
No, it is something that's definitely on our radar. We've had conversations, but ultimately it's going to come down to how much water are they moving, and that is how many parties are going to be part of the second pipeline, how big it is, and what's the maximum capacity it needs to supply. If it's just us, I mean, within their system, they may be able to make things work
I
to
see what you
just
mean.
supply us.
Okay.
So that's a big unknown for them.
There should be a march on the State House if it's just us. I mean, that would be criminal, to put a pipe in that's not big enough to take care of the town through which it runs. Just think about that.
Yes, yes. But they are aware, and it is on their radar, like I said, and they just need to know what to design around.
By the way, where is that new gateway installed? Where is that?
That is on the Tuwisset Fire Station. They have a tall communication pole, and we are right below them.
Ah,
So,
okay.
so obviously we are not out there, but it's got a really good view of our system.
Okay, okay.
So that's why we selected that site.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Come on.
It's picking up the meters on on the other side of Bristol. It's really, that's what it's doing.
Yeah, as that land flows down to the water, we weren't seeing it from our elevated towers. So they were kind of shielded with the trees. So this was a nice shot to kind of look directly at.
Great,
So we're getting neighborhoods that were otherwise blind consistent.
thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, Sue?
Not much to report. We have no contractors working at the moment, except that on the 2022 renewal project, we do have final paving to be done next spring. We are waiting for some bills from the town of Bristol, who's doing some paving for us, actually on the 2021 renewals. But nothing really happening there. We are in the process, the plans and specifications for next year's project are actually pretty close to complete. We're working with an overall budget of $2.5 million that's in the budget. And we have come up with the streets listed in my report, mostly in Barrington. And due to the issues that we're still seeing with supply chain issues of getting water main and appurtenances and hydrants, we've chosen to do a large portion of the project is cleaning and lining of cast iron mains. So we have obviously a lot of cast iron mains in our system that could use to be lined, so we're choosing a project focusing on that next year. And just one project in Barrington that is new ductile iron that we had been trying to do for a few years. So we kept that, and the rest is cleaning and lining. And we hope to bid this as soon as Christmas is over in January and award it early next year.
Any questions, anyone? Thank you. Any comments on Randy's report? Okay. Let's go on to the next item. Their financial report. There you go.
I'll try to go through October a little bit quicker since we have the whole budget and a pretty full agenda anyways. So for October, revenue's up about almost 10%. We had another pretty good month. The expenses were only a little bit higher, about 1.42% higher. And the same categories were over pretty much the last month. We had some prepayments and professional fees were higher because, again, we're down because we're getting fewer legal bills, which I like.
I'll see you next month.
He's gonna do year-end billing. So October versus October, we noticed that. Operation and maintenance was a lot higher this month, but again, since when you look at month to month, it's usually a timing. And last year, or this year, there was just more paving and new services that hit in October this year versus last year. So that was just timing, really. When we look at through October, we have revenue higher about 8.16%, and the expenses are just under 5% higher. Again, August and September are pretty top 5 consumption months, so a lot of that expenses being over is water purchases to cover that. And then when we go to actual to budget, we're starting to come into form here, and it should probably pretty much stabilize now because the rest of the year, the water's pretty consistent. Our high months are pretty much behind us, so versus budget, we're just over 10% higher in the revenue area. And expense-wise, we're just over 5% under budget. We're about 95%, 94%. A little bit higher there, a little bit higher than they were in October, just a touch. We had a couple of things pop in October then through September. Let's see. If we go to page 7 through 9 is the dollars billed and gallons delivered. The dollars billed are up almost 7%, and the gallons delivered is up almost 3%. Difference is about 4%, which was our rate increase for this past year. For page 10 is a trustee fund report. The debt service is at 6.43, which is up a little bit from September. And then the pensions are at page 11. The various increases and decreases since June have pretty much balanced out, so the balance as of the end of October is almost the exact same balance as it was at the beginning of the year. So the increases and decreases with unrealized gains and losses, plus our contributions have kind of netted out. So again, that's only a few months into the pension year. So hopefully the market keeps going well. So that's October.
Any questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Okay, Finance Committee.
Right, the Finance Committee met on Wednesday, November 17th, 2022, and there were two activities in that meeting. The first activity was a report relative to the pension by Dan Scott for future plans associates, and basically he said the plan is well funded. The second part had to do with the draft of the capital budget and the operations and maintenance budget. And all this information is contained in front of us. And what I'd like to do is just make a motion to the board that the board approves for fiscal year of 2024 an operations and expense budget of $9,502,644 and a capital budget of $7,890,000 even. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. And if Dan would like to give a brief summary, it's all in the material we have, but if you'd like to just do that, we would appreciate it.
I'll just hit the high points on the operations and maintenance budget first. This doesn't really affect anything now because it's actually voted on in January, but for the revenue side, we went with an assumption of a 6% rate increase. Again, that really gets voted on next time, but that's one of the high points. For the expense side, you know, I kind of did that payroll budget that Mark used to do, and I tweaked it. Budgeted for the non-union employees at 4% raise, and the union contract at a 2.95% raise. I mean, with inflation as it is, it'd be nice to do a little bit more, but kind of stuck a little bit. The pension funding for the operations and maintenance budget is based on that futures plan report that we received through June. And then as Steve reminded me, the last meeting of the Finance Committee asked, I kind of extend those payments through because our pension goes July to June and our fiscal calendar goes March to back around to February. So I kind of extend those payments through. So that's where that $220,000 comes from. I kind of took what I needed to get the funding up to what it needs to be paid by June and continued that through the rest of the year. Best case scenario, that's a little bit more than we need to, and for cash flow wise, I can peel that back, you know, in July, August, or September. But I'd rather budget a little bit higher and be able to peel it back than have to go over. And that was really the highlights of the O&M budget. Yeah, that's really the highlights. The health insurance pretty much came in right at what we had budgeted at the time, so. That's the highlights on the operations budget. On the capital budget, obviously Steve, Mike, Sue, and whoever else gets together and comes up with a capital budget. And the highlights there is really that the total cost for this 10-year versus, I factored out the 10 years. You're only voting on the current year coming up. Versus last year's 10 years, it actually only went up about $2 million. And when Steve was doing the phase 2, he bumped that up about $8 million. So overall, compared to last year's 10-year projection, it's only up a little bit. For the rates, for the future debt services, I reached out to Sean Fisher, who was a gentleman at Hilltop Securities that does our bond issues with us, and I asked him for like the latest and greatest rates, what we would get if we went out to market. And he gave me a couple rates. He said for a rate for an issuer like us, 4.75 for 20 years and 5% for 30 years, and he suggested adding about 0.25 or 0.5 to adjust for potential increases. I'm sure that rate had the big increase that happened like 2-3 weeks later. I increased it by 0.75. And I just added another 0.25. So for the 20-year bond issues that are included, again, you're only voting on 1 year, but going forward, I used 5.5, and for the 30 years, I used 5.75.
Haven't we used Sandy Mac in the past, recent past, for all of these private placements rather than bidding?
She orchestrates it, yeah, but Sean's the one who, he's the one who kind of orchestrates the financial piece. Sandy does more of the legal piece. They handle the financial piece and get us the bids from the different banks in this case. And that's what he's seeing, what was that, interest rate? A little lower than I thought, but that's okay. And then going forward, again, the rate increases, I do the 10-year with all us, and then with a 50-50 split for phase 2 with East Providence, kind of worst case scenario, best case scenario. For both sets of the 10-year calculations, I stayed with the same rate increases, just so you can see the impact on the debt service. So for the all us, for the phase 2, I went with a 6% rate increase for 2024. From 2025 and 2026, did 5%, and then went down to 4 for 27 through 33. And using those rate increases, you have a debt service that ranges from 4.84 for fiscal 2024 down to 2.12 in 2033. With the 50-50 split, it hits 4.84 for this current budget period, and then by the end it goes down to 4.41 with a low of 4.06, because there's a couple of years in there, 2028, 2029, where our debt burden peaks a little bit, and then it'll kind of come down a little bit after that.
I think Gene has made a point specifically in the past that we have to protect ourselves for the worst case, and that if we have time, then but this requires a significant explanation to the public why we're doing what we're doing, and that if things work out as we hope they will, then this will lower the whole ballgame.
Because you bumped it up a little bit from what.
Yes,
we-
because when I presented to the finance committee, it was 5%, and then Gina had suggested bumping it up 1%. And just, every 1% change for our budget purposes, for the revenue purposes, it's $130,000 for our, but again, you start compounding and preparing ahead of time for 10 years down the road.
Right. Joe, Nancy, I'm sorry. So we would advertise this and have a public hearing in January. And that's when we would do the rate increase.
Yes.
Formally. Okay, so between now and then, we need to have a public relations explanation out for the public to understand what's going on, so that we're well ahead of that.
Projecting a lower increase brought us to a point where our debt service coverage was too close for comfort.
Right, so we need to really sell that one. So, I mean, I have every confidence that we're not gonna have objections. People have seen the work we're doing, and nobody's arguing about
They're
it.
preoccupied with their gas and their oil and their electric bills,
Right.
which are much higher than this one.
That was a lot of the literature I was looking at too, like saying basically, this is the year, if you were only gonna do 1 or 2%, you might wanna do 3 or 4% because, get ahead of it a little bit, because people are worried about their 40% increase in their gas bill, and so.
Well, I understand the politics, and from my perspective, we've set ourselves up with a good record. People, I think, by saying nothing, appreciate what we're doing. I mean, we're a utility.
Yeah, but I
Okay?
agree with you. I think we need to be upfront about it and
Right.
say that we're making a lot of improvements and
This is
we're
a
gonna have to pay for it.
necessary element to protect everybody until certain facts become clear. And we have every feeling that it will be, but we gotta do this. We gotta protect you. At any rate, that's my comment on it.
So you'd like to see a press release in advance of the public hearing, informing the public of the rate increase?
The only problem with that is you can't necessarily, let me come and do this.
I don't think we want to talk a specific
Percentage, because you don't know what it's
Right,
gonna be.
but I think we set the stage about
Yeah.
the investments we're making.
Yes. The board will be considering a rate increase for these borrowings, for these projects. But I don't know that I'd put the percentage in yet, because we just don't know what, we probably have an idea. I would put it, I think
Well,
we probably.
I mean, it's right here in the
Yeah.
budget.
But it's not in the budget, because we're only voting on the expense piece and the capital piece, so that's kind of,
We can work on, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What are you projecting the total cost of the phase two to be? I see that we have the thing here where it increased by 8 million.
We had-
One conversation, please. Go ahead.
I'm just asking, because if you tell people about phase two, and you're gonna run up through to Pawtucket, and their first comment is, well, how much is that costing me? Well, we just increased it by 8 million. What, I recall a couple of years ago, we were at 40 million.
Yeah, so it increased it to 48.
So
So it's
is that,
12 a year.
okay. So that's with
Part of the
BC,
story.
that's, no, but that's
That's the total.
BCWA,
That's the total construction,
that's
total project.
BCWA if needs to cover it.
That's just total project cost.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, Steve sets that up, and you make sure it's legal, and we'll be set for the hearing in January. Okay,
Would
any other
it
questions or comments?
be, then for the motion on the floor, we're all in favor, please raise your hands.
I'll second, I don't think there was a second one.
I thought there was. Did you have a second?
No.
All right, well, we got that second. Okay, so we're raising hands.
It's unanimous,
That is.
so the motion passes. That's the end of the report out.
Thank you.
Is that the approval for both?
Okay, flooring analysis.
Yes, as you recall, at the August board meeting, we presented a proposal to replace the first floor carpeting that's out, you see on the hallway, and the customer service offices, Dan's office, with carpet tile. Board requested that we look at some alternative materials, we'll do some vinyl tile. We met with Shaw Flooring, put together kind of an analysis of pros and cons. I don't think either material really would work. We have carpet here. I really strongly suggest that we have the carpet in the offices just for sound purposes. And when you look at that, and we already have carpet here, we installed the carpet in a small hallway upstairs. It's a little bit cheaper to install, and then we're just dealing with one material. It'd be my recommendation that we go with the carpet tile for the project.
So let's get a motion on the floor.
Move to approve.
This would be for carpet tile, $54,080.
So this is not a contract, Mr. Chairman, this is just,
We're coming back to us
the
with
type
our
of material
request.
we will need to go back
Okay,
to get new pricing, because this is now 7 months old.
Gotcha.
Prices change, daily.
this is just the type of surface to bid on.
Correct.
Okay, so then all those in favor of using the carpet tile rather than the luxury vinyl plank, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Okay, I guess you did some work here, Lauren. Is there something here that we continue? Some want to stay where they are, some want to use their computer, some want a new computer, whatever. Does this jeopardize the whole thing? Are we going to make more work for staff if you have both systems at the same time?
No.
Okay, I wouldn't want us to go down a rabbit hole and end up with an idea that we're saving money and then causing more trouble for staff to deal with it. So,
No, I think based on the results that we got from the survey we sent out to the directors, we'll continue to provide the paper copies as we always have. And for those directors who don't want the paper copies, I think they just email Lauren. we wouldn't deliver the paper copies. We'll continue to post the agenda, the link, but we're also looking into making that link a little bit easier by looking at some of the different types of agenda and meeting platforms that some other cities and towns utilize. Barrington, they use QuickBase, and Bristol, they use a system called Municode, which we really like the Municode. But we're just kind of pushing out a few things and getting some pricing, but that's kind of the way we would like to go. Yeah. And now they'll be able to host, not only agenda, but all the meeting materials, and it's like a cloud, and it has all the information
That's a
there
real advantage for the public.
for everything. And the public can click on it and get all that information easily. So
Okay,
it's a very, very nice, transparent system.
Would that entail that if we do have a meeting that instead of flipping pages here, everybody, whoever is doing presentation, their presentation will be showing up on the screen or something to follow along? I'm just wondering, everybody's you're either gonna have a pile of paper in front of you, somebody's.
Either that, or they bring their own laptops in, or, I think sometimes getting away from the paper is I myself have got the paper here, so.
But that's why I'm asking the
Yeah.
question, are we gonna, continue to flip the pages, or is there gonna be something, that would be?
We weren't planning on putting everything on the
Okay.
screen.
All right.
well, it's obviously a work in progress. So, let me see how it goes. I just think that my reason for raising the question is that it sounds good, but in the way we operate and the kind of paperwork we have, in the final analysis, maybe we have to walk slowly and make sure so that people get, the directors certainly, get what they need out of this.
Well, it sounds like most directors prefer paper, and will continue to get the paper. But the second piece of this, which is making all this information available to the public, you're working on.
Correct.
I much prefer the paper, pick up the green, have the paint, that's all I do all day, right? Hand it, fold it, I can highlight it, I can circle it. You can do all that digitally, but it makes it much more complicated.
All right. Okay, W-2 forms, this was brought up last time.
Yeah, that was my question, and when I read the IRS, it was very black and white.
Very clear.
They're wrong, in my opinion, but they're the
You want to
IRS.
play with the IRS? I don't know. And we also did
I read
contact.
this director's policy. I'm appalled by it.
With the contact policy?
It's really bad. I've never seen it. But just the second paragraph, under the BCWA, the board selects and controls the executive director.
Yeah.
They could use some polish.
Yeah, it's just,
So,
I had a similar reaction to that.
it goes from bad to worse.
yes.
And it's about 16 pages too long.
18 pages long.
So yes, let's put to bed a W-2 policy. So for the conduct policy, I know this came up only because, we talked about how the employee handbook may or may not apply to the board members, or decided it wasn't. But I said there is this conduct policy, which you don't have. So my recommendation is that, because I did speak with the staff member from Joe Whalen's office, and they have worked with other communities where they developed employee handbook, but then they've also developed, handbook for public officials. So it'd be my suggestion that we have them kind of develop the same type of thing. We'll bring it back to the policy committee to review, and then go forward that way.
Okay.
I think this was
One thing
back in the
that
1960s.
it's silent on is, what if we had a director who misses 2, 3, or 4 meetings? There's nothing in here that says we go to the town and say we need a replacement. And we don't have any, sort of zoning boards have an alternate member.
There's a liaison from Barrington, I think from each town. There's a liaison from the council
Right.
to this group. So that would be the first person you contact on the council to say, by the way,
Right.
so-and-so is not showing up.
But I think if there is a policy for directors, it should be explicit that directors are expected to attend meetings, and if they're going to miss more than one in a row.
Well, you're gonna rework this anyway. Right?
Yes.
Bring it back.
Steve, is the idea that they're going to provide, this policy will present to us their form of policy for an organization?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be something that just replaces this altogether. I don't even think it's worth updating this.
No, I don't think it is either.
Okay. So it was good to bring it up.
Which Jane mentioned that she had never seen this before. And I don't recall ever seeing it before.
I've never
When I
seen it.
started to read it, I'm thinking it was some high schoolers report or something. But it brings me back to when I first became a board member, I received this binder about 3-4 inches thick, and I assume that's still going on when new members come on board.
That came within that.
It was in there?
That was in there, yeah.
I must have fell asleep.
Yeah, I mean, so that's one of the many policies that's in that binder.
You know that next to the last page is a $50 bill. Nobody has ever said, whoopee! Go back and watch.
There are some, several policies in there that we've been looking at, and I think we could keep the policy committee very busy for next year or two.
Okay, quarterly write-offs, just for information.
0.16%.
Yep. That's very low, very low. I think the town tax collectors eat their hearts out. Something like this. Okay, we have an executive session. Once we get through with that, are we going to be making any action regarding, taking any formal action regarding what happens in the executive session?
There will be no vote, but there will be a recognition of the retirement of the chairman.
I understand, that won't take long.
That's what you think.
And the next meeting is January 26th. So otherwise, we'll go into, it is, 7 minutes to 6. We're going to enter executive session to entertain litigation pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246582, and to take care of the minutes of the executive session of 10/27. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. If you will shut off the cameras, please.
Motion to seal.
We're back in session at 6:05. We're back in regular session. Entertain a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It is done unanimously. Our next scheduled meeting is January 26th. Okay.
And do you have meetings scheduled for the rest of 2023? Because I had that one on my calendar, but I don't have one in February.
Oh, yes, the calendar will be going out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna send the calendar out to
That was a
everybody.
better way to phrase the question.
Okay, recognition of retirement of board chairman.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, over the years, you have graciously penned resolutions for retirement of employees.
Yes.
And since you are not going to read your farewell poem, for better or worse, I took the liberty of writing my unofficial resolution.
Terrific.
No one's heard this except Warren.
Hurry up, Earl, we
All right.
bated breath.
Whereas Chairman Klepper, after 33 years, says it's time, this resolution is hereby written in Klepper-like rhyme. Whereas Alan became a Barrington Council member in '76, and so began a long career in local politics. Whereas Alan took great interest in the fate of water and takeover of the water company, why yes, we are. Whereas Alan was appointed to BCWA board in '89 and pushed the idea of a Cross Bay pipeline. And whereas Alan helped convince the towns of the East Bay to shut down the old plant, a connection to Providence was surely the way. And whereas the construction of the pipeline was not easy, and ballooning costs in fact made everyone a bit queasy. Whereas with Alan's leadership, the authority stayed the course, and the Providence connection is now this area's water supply source. And whereas for 33 years, Alan has been a champion for the BCWA, more system improvements and recognition of employees, he'd say. And whereas Alan knows that BCWA's work is never done, and a leak in the pipeline was a wake-up call for everyone. And whereas Alan strongly supports a redundant pipe to Pawtucket, and demanded that the state pay their fair share, since project costs are not just a drop in the bucket. And whereas Alan and the board approved the Pawtucket pipeline project to move ahead. Without it, we may be in a situation that we might all dread. And whereas the first phase of that pipeline is now complete, as for the rest, phase 2 design is no easy feat. And whereas Alan has set in play the strategic plan to guide the way for water quality and reliability for forever and a day. And whereas Alan will be remembered for his way with words and unique style, along with his commitment, dedication, his chuckle and smile. And whereas Alan will surely be missed by board directors, staff, and the rest, and we wish you good health and for the future, all the best.
Do I get a copy of that?
Yes.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I was worried for a minute how we were going to rhyme something with Pawtucket. And I could picture it.
There is one word.
Oh, that's very nice. I appreciate it. It has been a marvelous experience, I gotta tell you. And as I said in my cover letter there, notes, if you question anything in the poetry about the recollections, email or call me. I'll be happy to fill you in on whatever details I recall. I try to remember as much as possible about all the things that have happened, but it's all there. It's all there. It's been wonderful working with everybody. You know, I'm in a couple of talk groups. It turns out that we become a family, and I really look at this same kind of situation with the people that I've worked with over the years. You become a family. You get to know the people, you know their interests, you know their biases, you know their feelings, and you know you got to get everybody to work together. And that's been a terrific experience for me. I really appreciate the support that I've gotten, especially since I've been the chairman. I honestly thank you very much for that. Enough said.
John has something for you.
Here's the silver tongue devil.
Alan, we have a little something for you here.
Oh,
There's only 3 of us here, though, that really appreciate this. Myself and Bill. That back when we were butting heads to be chairman, took like 3 months of tie votes. Unfortunately, I won. But that was in the years when we were at war with the public. And I still have some of the scars. I always mentioned Alan, I was the wartime chairman, he was the peacetime chairman. After I had enough, I figured there's only one guy that really can handle this case, it was Alan. And it was my honor to nominate him then, and I've nominated him every year.
you've been a supporter, yes, sir.
But Alan, we want to thank you for all your work. And the town of Barrington owes you great thanks. You've been dedicated to that town, and you've helped them in many ways. You were just telling me earlier, you still have something you're working on. But the Water Authority itself, there's probably not one person in the history of this whole board that has the knowledge and the energy to do what you have done. And it's been a wonderful accomplishment. And I can say that we're probably the finest water authority in the state of Rhode Island today. And most of that is due to you. And we have a little something for you, Alan. It says, Alan Klepper, Board Chairman, 2012-2022. Board Member, 1989-2022. In appreciation for your 33 years of dedicated and commitment to the Bristol County Water Authority. Alan, that's not a drop of water. That's a teardrop from all of us.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. I gotta show that to my wife. Maybe she'll appreciate
She earned it as much as you did.
Thank you so much. Oh, too much, too much. Obviously, it's a board. It's not one person. So maybe I was leading the tempo, but you all did all the votes, and that's what counts. Thank you again.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
No, not that we're trying to get rid of you, Alan. I want to ask our attorney, when does officially Juan assume the reins?
Tomorrow morning.
Have a vote on it, they have to redo it.
It's not an assumption.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not in the...
I'll take a look at it.
There's not gonna be a coup here.
I'm not advocating for a
Well, what do
coup.
you have the title of vice chairman for if it's not automatic?
I'll take a look at it.
Okay, take a look. So Alan, you're not done yet? You're not done yet?
Oh, okay, whatever. But I certainly hope that with, unless COVID has some weird thing occurring, we will be leaving to go to Florida the last half of January and all of February that we're down there. So, at any rate, I guess what we need to do now is to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, but just so you know, you're always welcome to come and give public comment as well.
Fair enough, fair enough. With that in mind, I'll entertain a motion to dissolve the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It is done. That's at 6:15. Thank you all. Have a good holiday.